be.
Okay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership for TEPSA here in Texas. Each week, I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and allow them to tell some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell yours. I am so thrilled this week to have my guest, Andrew Arevalo. Did I say it right?
You got it right.
Yes. Andrew, tell
Woo!
everybody a little about who you are.
Yeah, definitely. So, hello everyone, and Todd. First and foremost, thanks for having me on. Super humbled and appreciated. So, my name is Andrew Arevalo, as Todd mentioned. I'm a fourth grade teacher out in Southern California for the McCabe Union Elementary School District. I'm also our esports director as of this week, actually, as of yesterday. So, that's a little bit about me. And in terms of, some of the stuff I do, I speak, I get to share my ideas, and I'll actually be at FETC next week talking a little bit more about some of the actual strategies I use in my classroom. My Twitter handle is Gameboy Drew. I'm all about using games in the classroom. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, Andrew, I've loved getting to kind of follow you on social media and watch sort of your transformation and see all the great things you're doing. And so, I kind of want to start off with your journey into education. Did you know you always wanted to be a teacher?
It's really funny that you mentioned that, actually, because where I live right now, we have one of the highest unemployment rates. I think it's actually the highest in the nation. It's
Wow.
sitting around 20% right now in my local city. And so, if I wanted to stay here, the opportunities actually were somewhat limited, right? But the really cool aspect about that is I either wanted to, one, follow my mom in her footsteps and go and be a nurse, or two, follow my father in his footsteps and go and be, an elementary school teacher. So he's actually still in the classroom right now. He's on
Oh,
his
cool.
42nd year, and he teaches fourth grade as well at a neighboring district. So I kind of had a lens of the route that I was going to go, which was either go this way or go this way, right?
Mhm.
And luckily, I pursued, education, and I went along the path that my father had been, just like my big brother, who's a local high school principal at a neighboring district. And so, yeah, I kind of always had an idea, and then it just happened. And, thankfully, I landed in this career because, I absolutely love it.
Well, that's so funny that your dad is still in education and y'all teach the same grade level. Do you ever go sit and lesson plan with him?
All the time, literally all the
Really?
time. Yeah, especially for our math curriculum, because we actually use the same math curriculum. So, just yesterday I was with him, and we were trying to figure out this lesson, that we were going to focus on in our classrooms. Because right now it's funny, we're actually at like the same point, in our lessons and for the actual math chapters. So yeah, we actually brainstorm and talk about our lessons all the time. And it's pretty cool for me in the sense that I get to help my dad, because all the times that he's helped me. And
Mhm.
now he actually just recently got moved to fourth grade, so he had been in fifth grade for the longest time. He got bumped down to fourth grade, so he had to kind of relearn the curriculum in that grade level. And luckily I was there, and I'm able to help him. But getting to plan with him, getting to actually look at the content, the lessons, and actually go through the curriculum has been pretty special for me. How many people get to do that with their
Yeah.
actual father? So yeah.
So this is so intriguing to me. So what do you do when y'all are planning and you totally disagree over the way to approach the lesson?
Okay, my dad is super stubborn, right?
Yeah.
He is like the most stubborn person. So all I can do is try to like help him out as best as I can, and to the point where I think both of us just need breaks, from the
Mhm.
actual curriculum, and we're like, hey, let's go do something else for a little bit, Dad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cool perspective, and the
Mhm.
really neat thing about that is because he's been in the classroom for so long, literally everyone in the community knows him, right? So
Mhm.
the teachers that I actually work with, like my colleagues, a couple of them have had my father, right, as their
Wow.
teacher. And not only to mention, but the students who are in my classroom right now, their parents were in my father's class as you
Right.
know, kids growing up.
That's so cool. I mean,
Yeah.
that's got to lead to so many neat connections and conversations. I love that so much.
Hmm.
So, Andrew, thinking about you growing up, what was school like for you when you were growing up?
Yeah, so I actually was an inter-district transfer. So it was kind of odd because I lived in the city that I've always lived in, but I went to school my whole life 20 miles north, so in a neighboring city, because my mom was a nurse there at the hospital and she would just take me to work with her, right? So
Mhm.
I was kind of like almost like it was a weird stage because I was like almost seen as the other in the sense that
Mhm.
I wasn't from the actual area over there, but I grew up over there. You know, since preschool I went to school over there, yet I always lived over here. So
Mhm.
I was kind of like in the middle of both, and it was a
Yeah.
weird intersection for me. But thankfully, I had my really close group of friends that
Mhm.
took me in, and but yeah, it was a different process in that sense for me. I always remember it, and two, I was yeah, just thinking about it and like trying to figure out if I had friends in El Centro or if I had friends in Brawley,
Mhm.
because the funniest thing too is Brawley, where I went to school at, they literally have like this hardcore rivalry with El Centro, which is
Really?
the city I live in, right? So I'm like, uh, I actually even if I'm not mistaken, I think that the two high schools, Central Union High School and Brawley, have well, we have this tradition called the bow game for football, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it's like one of the longest rivalries in terms of the actual Guinness Book of World Records.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, who am I rooting for, right?
Yeah,
Brawley
yeah.
or for El Centro? So,
That is
but
hilarious. Well,
yeah.
Andrew, how long have you been teaching now?
So I'm on my fifth year right now, on my fifth year.
So, you've had a couple years now to have some different experiences, to let some things sink in. What do you think is the biggest thing you've learned about yourself in the last 5 years?
Wow, that's a good question. I'd say the thing that I've always struggled with, Todd, is I see things happening in my district or my community, and I've never really been the one to actively voice, my opinion, right,
Mhm.
on things. And I'd say like growing into the teacher I am today, I see district initiatives happening or I see things going on in my school, and I just want to have more of like a leadership role.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is I haven't always wanted that leadership role, but I find myself actively, in the process of like,
Mhm.
people looking to me like I'm the leader. And I've gone through the phase of like, I don't really want that, to like, I'm the leader. Like, let me help my community. Let me
Yeah.
lead, and I'm going to do the best job that I can do. And luckily, I've had a lot of support from my actual district administration. Just this week, I'm in the process of launching an esports league slash team for my whole district, and I'm just blessed by the amount of support that I get from my
Mhm.
superintendent, and from my whole admin team. I mean, they really put a lot of responsibility on me in terms of actually planning out everything,
Yeah.
and I'm just ecstatic right now at where this is going to go. And I'm actually already in the process of talking to a couple of other local district board members and other local administrators from neighboring districts, because it's kind of like my goal is to have this first season at my district, and then next year launch an actual esports league within my whole community, right? And
Cool.
get the other neighboring districts involved, so we could have our own Imperial Valley esports league.
Yeah.
um, there's just so many components and pieces to consider when doing this, especially when no one in your actual community has done it. And two, making sure that you're answering all the questions that parents might
Mhm.
have, because this is such a new, uh, you know, perspective, right, in terms of what's happening at schools now. So,
Well,
yeah,
I love that. I love that you're getting those leadership opportunities and that people are allowing you to step in and grow in that area. And, that kind of leads me to my next question. Speaking of growth, when you think about your life and the experiences you've been through and the things that have happened to you, what do you feel like looking back? I know there's going to be a lot of answers to this, but one, what do you feel like is one event that really grew you into the man you are today?
yeah, yeah, that is a great question. Jeez. Um, I'd say having the perspective of seeing my parents go through a divorce,
Mm,
right? Because I always remember up until sixth grade, I had to spend the weekends with, I'd go between, my two homes, between my father's house and my mom's. And, by like some miracle of me praying, my parents got back together
wow.
up at sixth grade, right? So they never remarried, but they got back together. And I always remember how happy I was,
Yeah.
uh, because they got back together. And even though they didn't get remarried, it was like my family got, came back together. And
Mhm.
that was like a defining moment for me
Right.
because, I remember growing up in sixth grade, we moved back in with my father, and I got the perspective of that I didn't have before, of having my mom and my dad, both at the same time.
Mhm.
um, and just, I'm very appreciative of, that they made things work, and it's nice to spend Christmas and spend the holidays with my mom and my dad, as
Mhm.
compared to with one or the other. So I'd say that was a defining moment in my life, and just, having my big brother, in the process of when they actually went through the divorce, but looking up to my brother,
Mhm.
and just kind of, helping, having him help me out through this process,
Right.
because it's a traumatic event.
Mhm.
And so yeah, thankfully, they were able to get back together. But I'd say that was like one of the biggest moments for me in my life.
That's a cool story, and that's a really unique story because you don't hear that kind of outcome
Hmm.
often in those situations.
Yeah.
So, when you mentioned your brother and the role he played in that, when you look back at the people in your life that have played a role into growing you into who you are today, outside of family, who is somebody that has really been instrumental in your growth?
Okay, well, outside of my family, so I won't mention my fiance, um, but I would definitely say, my colleague Norma Gomez.
Oh,
So she actually, she got hired at our district. I'd say about, I want to say this is her third year, so 3 years ago now. And at the time, I was doing things in my classroom, right? I was doing the same exact things I'm doing in my classroom, maybe not to this extent, but I wasn't sharing it with anyone. So I was essentially, I was in isolation,
mhm,
just, doing this cool stuff in my classroom, but not really thinking that I had anything worth sharing. And then my
mhm,
friend comes along, Norma. She's like blown away by some of the stuff I'm doing, and I'm like, it's nothing special. It's just, it's my normal. And she was like, no, Andrew, like, you got to go, you got to speak at these conferences, you got to share some of the ideas that you're doing. And so she was, so on the West Coast here in California, our ISTE affiliate is called Q. I'm
mhm.
not sure if you're familiar with it.
Yep.
Okay. And she was on our local Q affiliate board at the time, and she
Mm,
still is now. She's our vice president. And so she actually introduced me to Q, and to, what connected educators look like, into this whole landscape of, all these teachers who are on Twitter, who are sharing ideas, who are connecting, who are reflecting and improving their practice together. And I was like, Oh my gosh. Where have I been? I've literally been missing out on like this whole
Mhm.
world by myself. And within the first year that she introduced me to Q, the following year, I was the 2019, just well, yeah, this past year, the 2019 Emerging Teacher of the
Mhm.
Year. Then shortly after that, I joined our local Q affiliate board, and I can't announce anything officially yet, but there's some other cool stuff happening with Q, right? In the next couple of weeks, I'm sure it'll be, announced. But yeah, and if it wasn't for her, I'd be doing exactly what I'm doing, but nobody would know who I am,
Right.
and I wouldn't be having these types of connections, in terms of actually sharing my ideas, but not only just sharing my ideas, right? Actually connecting with individuals
Mhm.
who these other mentors, right? Because Norma introduced me to John Caripo and Ann
Mhm.
Cosma and Flipgrid, and I was like, oh my gosh, So now I have this whole team behind me, and I definitely have to give her credit, because without her, I don't. I probably wouldn't be having this conversation with
I
you,
was just
Todd.
about to say, so clearly
Yeah.
I need to thank Norma for being able to have this conversation today.
Yeah,
Well,
she
I
is the
love that
best.
you bring that up because, I think that's important for people to hear the importance of connecting with others on social media. And, I love the point you bring where you said, I didn't really think what I was doing was that special. It was just my norm. And, I think we all are in that mindset of, isn't this what everybody does? Like, it's not that big of a deal. Everybody knows about this. But what I love about what I've seen since being connected on social media is that all of us bring a brilliance to the table. All of us
Mhm.
bring a gift to this profession. And we have to be out there connecting and sharing because it's not just beneficial for us, it benefits our students as well when we are having these
Absolutely.
conversations and meeting people and learning new things. And yes, half the time you're not learning anything new on social media, you're being reminded of things that you already
Oh yeah.
learned that you forgot because we only have 1,000 things we're taught every day as educators.
Yep.
But it's such a powerful thing when you choose to connect and get out there online. And I love that you are a prime example. And my
Mhm.
story's similar about all the experiences I've got to have in my life through education. They're not because I'm any better than any other educator. It's
Mhm.
because I'm out there sharing. And if
Yeah,
you don't share, people don't know. And so that's kind of like I
absolutely.
love the stuff you're sharing. I know that we've been connected for a little while now, and I've learned things from you. And so
Mhm.
I love that we get to thank Norma for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna like send her this afterwards, and she's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, Andrew, like stop," because she's the type of person that really hates like being in the public or in the
Mhm. Yep.
spotlight or anything like that. But she totally deserves it.
Yep. Well, Andrew, one question I always love to end these conversations on is, and this does not have to do with education at all if you don't want it to. It's just what is the one thing that you wish more people knew or understood?
I I wish that more teachers were talking about the issues that are going on in our world right now
Mm,
in a way that they feel comfortable and supported by their district admin.
mhm.
Because I feel like there's so many things happening right now, right?
Yep.
And if we're shielding our students from all this, it's like we're just putting a blanket around them, and then when they go into the real world, they're exposed to all these ideas, and it's very overwhelming for them, right? So just the other day, right, on Monday, I was having a conversation with my students who were talking about, the fires in Australia. And then we started, just briefly talking about the situation in Iran. But it got brought up, and I had two of my fourth grade boys, actually cheer for war.
Mhm.
And I was actually really taken aback by it. I was alarmed. I was like, let me use this as a learning experience, because
Yeah.
these 9-year-olds, they don't know what war is.
Right.
They don't know what a war means, and who it affects. And so, I literally stopped my conversation, and I addressed it, and I said, hey, obviously, without putting my perspective
Right.
on it, without putting my personal opinion on it, I just provided the context. I said, hey, like, you're cheering for a war, but do you know what a war is, and what
Mhm.
it means, and who it can affect? Like, if we have family members from, the students in our class right now who are in the military, how might it affect your actual friend who's seated right
Mhm.
next to you? And you're cheering for it. So, I just want you to be mindful of that.
Mhm.
Um, and the thing is, the next day I had a parent call me, and she called me, and she wanted to just talk about the situation, and at the end of the conversation, she said that she appreciated that I had that conversation in
Mhm.
my classroom, and that I was providing everyone with the context, and like I said, I know it's a touchy subject for many teachers because there's this whole aspect of not being political in the classroom,
Mhm.
but teaching is political.
Right.
And so yeah, I just kind of wish that more teachers would feel empowered or feel supported to actually have those types of conversations, whether it's in fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade. And granted, there's many teachers who are, but I also feel like many teachers are
Mhm.
hesitant and they're scared of any like
Yeah.
repercussions or things like that, and I get it, but at the same time, that's just my perspective.
Well, I love that you say that, and I completely agree with you. I think there is a way to do it that
Mhm.
is respectful but
Definitely.
informative. And when we don't have those conversations, we're not shielding the kids from anything because they're going to find information, and
Yeah.
most of what they're going to find online is incorrect. And so
Yeah.
the more that we can educate them in a way that does not spread our own beliefs but just spreads fact,
Yeah.
I think that's more beneficial to our students. So I love that that is what you ended on there. Well, Andrew, I admire you and your work so much.
Mhm.
I look forward to the day that we get to meet face to face and I get to learn from you face to
Absolutely.
face.
Yes.
But you are incredible, and thank you for doing what you do and for coming on today to tell some of
Mhm.
your story.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Todd. And like I said, I'm looking forward to 2020 being the year where I actually get to officially meet you, right?
Right, right. Well,
So
thank you,
thank you.
everybody, for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out all past episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And hopefully, you've enjoyed today's conversation and it's inspired you to get out there and tell some of your story because every story matters.